Hello everybody, I hope you're all well. It's official, we're having a Brat summer. Charli XCX released her 6th studio album at the beginning of June, and to say it's been a cultural phenomenon honestly feels like an understatement. Everything is Brat. Our summer is Brat. Our outfits are Brat. The club is Brat. The future potential president of the United States is Brat. Yes, the Kamala Harris HQ Twitter had a rebrand after Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race. Does it feel a bit weird that an ex-district attorney is bumping that? Should we do a little key? Should we do a little line? Well, yes, but this really does represent how all-encompassing Brat has become. I've been thinking a lot about Brat recently. I really love the album. I'm actually going to go see Charli in November in Birmingham, very random. I've been thinking a lot about Brat because it's so clear to me that Brat goes beyond the music, right? Brat is a lifestyle. We're all having a Brat summer. Hello. But also, we're definitely beginning to see the tremors of an indie sleaze revival / comeback. And in turn, we are witnessing some really strange discourse and also some what I would describe as unhinged tweets about Charli XCX and her party girl era and her birthday party and indie sleaze. Essentially, in this video, I want to discuss why Brat has become such a cultural phenomenon and indie sleaze revival and what that means for the culture. And just before we get into it, I would love to thank Cheeks for sponsoring today's video. Cheeks are my go-to sexual wellness platform, and I've continued to work with them over the years because I genuinely really believe in what they do and what they stand for. Cheeks believe that sexual wellness and education should go hand in hand, and with a Cheeks subscription, you get unlimited access to authentic and ethically produced adult films, which are not only consensual, but everybody in the production is paid fairly, sexy audios, expert-led masterclasses, and live Q&A sessions. Something which really stands out to me about Cheeks is the Pleasure Academy. So much education surrounding this subject in school focuses on things like protection and STIs and preventing pregnancy, and not a lot on how to actually safely have The Cheeks Pleasure Academy provides expert-led masterclasses and tutorials and provides a safe space to explore all of your wants and desires. And as a vaginismus girly, I have found out so much about my condition through the Pleasure Academy. I've read a few articles about it, and not only have I educated myself a little bit more, but also it makes me feel a lot less alone. Having the condition that I have, it can feel a little bit isolating because it's not really spoken about very much. So it was really nice to read a few articles on the Pleasure Academy about it, reading articles from people who have the same condition as me. And Cheeks have very kindly provided a code for you guys. If you use the code 7JORDAN in all capitals, that's 7 JORDAN in all capitals, you'll get a 7-day free trial of Cheeks. Just make sure you select the annual subscription option, and then before it charges you, you can switch it over to the monthly subscription option for your 7-day free trial. So make sure you click the link in the description and use my code for a 7-day free trial of Cheeks. Thank you so much again, Cheeks, for sponsoring today's video and sponsoring my content over the past few years. It's always a pleasure to work with you guys, and let's get into it. When asked by Nick Grimshaw what her Brat summer essentials were, although Charli XCX said that it can lean into luxury, all you really need is a pack of cigarettes, a Bic lighter, and a strappy white top with no bra under it. She's so real. Brat summer, it's quite trashy. And I think in that way, for me anyway, this is quite a personal part of this video essay. That for me is why Brat summer feels like a little bit of a relief. Yes, merch has been released. Yes, people are going out and buying slime green tops or, Brat phone cases because they want to have their Brat summer. But what I will say is I do think that Charli has probably had the opportunity to capitalize on this very heavily and has still chosen to keep the Brat summer essentials very minimal. She essentially went down the route of saying that there aren't really any Brat summer essentials apart from a packet of cigarettes and a strappy white top, which is stuff that most of us own. Cementing the notion that Brat summer is about the way that you live, not necessarily about the way that you look, or more importantly, the way you consume. I think something that has really been drawing my attention and something that I'm finding really interesting is seeing the amount of brands and publications struggling to capitalize on Brat summer, right? Via products and merchandise. And this isn't me trying to say that Brat is communist. But rather, I'm trying to say, like, yes, of course, you know, millions and millions of pounds have been made from this album. There's a stadium tour, there were festivals, there was the album itself. But I can't help but compare the Brat summer of 2024 to Barbie summer of 2023. Let's go back, shall we? Now, I hate to be this person. I hate looking at things with so much nihilism. But in the summer of 2023, when the Barbie movie came out, people rushed out in their thousands to cop some pink merchandise to wear when they were watching the film. And look, do not get me wrong. Going to the cinema and watching Barbie where everyone was wearing pink, I would not change that for the world. But when I do think about the amount of waste that was probably produced by Barbie summer, it does send shivers down my spine. And the lengths that Mattel went to collaborate with different brands in order to promote the film needs to be studied in schools. Mattel collaborated with Primark, Crocs, Boston Cruise Ships, Airbnb, Aldo, Zara, Nastasia, Fossil, Forever 21, Gap, and NYX Cosmetics to release Barbie-themed collections. And a vast majority of these collections weren't just pink, they were like specifically Barbie branded, so I can imagine the cost per wear was really high. You know, I've made videos about overconsumption in fast fashion on this channel before, so I'm not going to get into it, but as I mentioned earlier, the amount of waste that must have been produced literally sends shivers down my spine. And this isn't me criticizing people who fell into it a little bit. I literally have an I Survived the Barbenheimer t-shirt, like who am I to talk? But I can imagine compared to the consumerist hellscape that was Barbie summer, Brat summer perhaps feels like a breath of fresh air. To put my academic hat on for a second, this isn't to say that Brat summer is free of criticism. Kamala is Brat, the memification of politics and how that impacts voting behaviors. I could make an entire separate video on this, but I mostly want to talk about in this video why I think Brat summer is resonating with people and the relationship that I think Brat summer has to indie sleaze revival. And something again that I do find really interesting is seeing corporations kind of struggle to capitalize on this. There's been one Brat collaboration, and that is with the app Dress to Impress. The Brat Summer Essentials articles feel so soulless in comparison to an album that feels so authentic. What exactly does Brat entail? It's a bold punk Y2K fashion aesthetic that calls for trendy hot pants, Von Dutch trucker hats, and neon green. It spans from casual graphic baby tees during the day to sheer black tights, preferably ripped, at night for that 3-6 party girl vibe. But most of all, being a Brat is about having the unabashed confidence of an it girl, like Charlie XCX and her Brat remix collaborators Addison Rae and Lorde. So it's time to break out the summer outfits and trendy accessories that will help boost your confidence. Speaking of the economic state of the world right now, let's talk about recession pop. If you haven't heard of this, post-financial crash of 2008, the songs regularly topping the charts were fast dance pop high beat songs, and this trend continued into the early 2010s, similarly to how there was still the repercussions of the 2008 financial crash in the 2010s. Think TGIF, Katy Perry, TikTok, Kesha, Black Eyed Peas, I Got a Feeling, all of LMFAO's discography. In times of economic and political uncertainty, people just want to let go and dance and have fun and forget about all of their problems. In the 20s, blues and swing music was popularized during the Great Depression, and punk and disco music rose in popularity during the winter of discontent in the late 70s. I think the parallels between early 2010s dance music and Brat is absolutely uncanny. And there's going to be many people that argue that technically we aren't in a recession. Technically, we aren't in a recession. And what I say to that is shut your damn mouth. Not only is the economy growing at a snail's pace in this country, but there is an ongoing cost of living crisis. Services that people depend on, housing, food, water and energy bills, transport and transit, just keep getting more and more expensive, and wages and salaries are not rising to match this. They haven't been rising to match this for well over 10 years. There is a huge wealth distribution disparity between Gen Z and millennials and Gen X and boomers. I think this idea that technically we aren't in a recession means that Brat isn't recession pop is just, I'm not buying it, girls. I'm not buying it. There have been been rumors and tremors for a few years now that indie sleaze is going to be making a comeback. And some of you guys that watch my videos are quite young and you may not be aware of the next level iconry that was indie sleaze. So buckle in, let me introduce you. I think the beauty of indie sleaze is that it's a subculture that is pretty difficult to pin down. It was very popular between 2007 to 2014. The subculture can very much be categorized with this very distinct digital flash photography that was popularized by It Girl fashion brand American Apparel, which we will circle back to in just a moment. And if you were indie sleaze, you had to be rocking the most aggressive, greasy side part of all time. Kate Moss and Pete Doherty at Glastonbury Festival, Skins UK, Sky Ferreira, Statement Ties, Alex Turner's love letter to Alexa Chung, Leopard Print, Metallics, MIA, Bowler Hats, Zooey Deschanel's old Premier looks, Tweet and Peter Pan collars, anything and everything American Apparel, messy makeup and smudged eyeliner, and even Tumblr pale grunge falls into this category. All black outfits, Arctic Monkeys AM falls under the indie sleaze umbrella. And I think that's the exact appeal of indie sleaze at the moment. It is a distinct yet indefinable aesthetic. I've made a video about TikTok aesthetics before, but within the last few years, we've seen a real influx in these TikTok aesthetics, right? From the really popular clean girl aesthetic, which is probably the definitive fashion trend of the early 2020s, all to the absolutely absurd, lest we forget Tomato Girl Summer. And it's not that people are sick of aesthetics. Subcultures have existed for probably as long as humans have. But this very recent aesthetics in the past couple of years, you know, these new wave of aesthetics which people have popularized or attempted to popularize on TikTok seem to be inextricably linked with consumerism. There are very specific products one can purchase in order to achieve one of these aesthetics. There's almost like a uniform, right? There's almost like a uniform. Like there's a clean girl uniform, there's Ganni uniform, there's a Tomato Girl Summer uniform. Do you know what I mean? Of course, there are specific clothing pieces associated with indie sleaze, but it's a lot more broad. And because it's going to take a few more years for this trend to hit the mainstream, you can't just link a top that you think is indie sleaze on TikTok shop. Similarly to how you can link a gym set if you're trying to look like a clean girl. Do you know what I mean? And I think the exact appeal of indie sleaze is the reason why I do not think it's going to take off in the same way that it did 15 years ago. The only iterations of indie sleaze that I have seen hit the mainstream are digital cameras and Instagram photo dumps. Now stay with me. As I mentioned, those, you know, flash photography, digital camera pictures were one of the only consistents through the indie sleaze aesthetic. And digital cameras have become popular amongst young people again because I can't lie, digital cameras make you look really, really good. But I do see it mostly in the context of, look at this digital camera I linked on TikTok shop, or look at this Canon G7X that I've linked on my Amazon storefront. And I feel like such a party pooper, but I'm not saying that people can't like recommend digital cameras, but rather the one iteration of indie sleaze that we are seeing in the modern day is more often than not attached to some kind of commission link or storefront. And I'm wholeheartedly convinced that Instagram photo dumps are the modern day version of a Facebook photo dump. Now, like I mentioned earlier, some of you guys who watch my videos are quite young, so let me tell a story about what life used to be like when people had Facebook. So back in the day, you would go to a party and one person would have a digital camera and they'd take pictures all night. And then this person would upload the entire memory card onto a Facebook album where you could go and look at it and everybody else that you know could look at it too. And look, I love an Instagram photo dump. This isn't me criticizing Instagram photo dumps, obviously, but obviously it's a lot more curated than it used to be. It doesn't quite have that same charm. I think the charm of indie sleaze came from the fact that it wasn't very curated and everyone dressed differently from one another. There wasn't really a handbook or a specific uniform or products that you could buy to achieve it. You sort of just took inspiration from one another. I don't think anything represents the death of indie sleaze better than the bankruptcy bankruptcy and rebrand of American Apparel. The brand was founded by Dov Charney in 1989. It functioned initially as a wholesale company selling blank t-shirts to uniform companies, screen printers, and fashion brands. And it was when Dov began developing the direct-to-consumer branch of the company that things really began to take off. American Apparel was a vertically integrated company, meaning that every part of the supply chain was owned by American Apparel themselves. And a key part of American Apparel's branding was that all of their clothes were sweatshop free and made in the USA. USA! In 2005, the company made revenues of $211 million and revenues of $634 million in 2013. As I mentioned earlier, American Apparel was the brand that honestly I would say popularized the sort of digital flash photography, and that's how they would shoot all of their campaigns. They would often use unairbrushed images. They would use images of sort of like smudged makeup, models that had flaws. They just had like skin texture and under eye circles, but you know what I mean. And they would also scout models in public and in their stores. But, and there is a big but, American Apparel's advertising was iconic. Do not get me wrong, but especially looking back, bitch, what the fuck? The advertising, honestly, it was pretty misogynistic. It regularly objectified young women. Just advertisements on advertisements of half naked or fully naked young women. I even found a Times Magazine article highlighting the top 10 most controversial American Apparel advertisements. That's how bad it is. They got Watch Mojo'd. And these advertisements become even more sinister when you discover that the founder of American Apparel, Dov Charney, was ousted from the company in 2014 after several lawsuits were levied against him, accusing him of sexual harassment. This includes sexually harassing a 17-year-old employee, sexual assault, racist remarks, and abusive behavior towards numerous employees. And Charney himself has said multiple times that he sees no problem with sexually pursuing employees. And we are going to be circling back to this later in the video, but obviously I have been looking back on indie Sleaze with rose-tinted glasses, but it truly was not all sunshine and rainbows, and Dov Charney is just one example of this. Dov Charney was ousted from American Apparel in 2014 and was replaced by fashion executive Paula Schneider, and the brand actually declared bankruptcy in 2015. Now, this was actually unrelated to Dov getting the boot because American Apparel hadn't been turning a profit since 2009. But post being Dov fired, post declaring for bankruptcy, in 2017, American Apparel was acquired for $88 million by premier Canadian sportswear manufacturer Gillian Activewear. And this is where things begin to get even more weird in terms of the brand. I will say that the conditions in which Gillian Activewear took over American Apparel weren't the best. The brand was embroiled in controversy because of their old advertisements and disgraced founder. The company hadn't turned a profit in over 5 years. And Paula Schneider and the new American Apparel team did make efforts to try and scrub their image and rebrand, but unfortunately stripped everything that made American Apparel what it was. They still kept the old cult classic pieces, but all of the new pieces they were releasing just weren't hitting the same. There was a point, especially in sort of 2013, 2014, when everything that American Apparel touched seemed to turn to gold in my eyes. I know they weren't making a profit, but I remember I used to go into the American Apparel store in Oxford Circus when I was like 15, 16 years old, and I would be able to find something like that. So all the new pieces weren't hitting the same. And also on top of this, a new shopping feature was introduced, which was just a bit strange. Customers could choose to buy a clothing piece which was made in America or a cheaper, globally produced option. And eventually American Apparel would drop the American-made option altogether, citing that the customers would just go for the cheaper option anyway. To quote Eliza Brooke for Vox, American Apparel says a lot about life after bankruptcy. We came to the conclusion that the American in American Apparel is not necessarily a place, says Mazzucchelli, who joined the company in January 2016. Customers care that we are ethically made and sweatshop free. They don't really care if we are ethically made in China, in Mexico, in Honduras, in the US, or in France. A Guardian report from November 2017 paints a very different picture of how workers are treated in Gildan's factories, citing complaints dating to 2004. Those included mandatory work shifts longer than the legal maximum limit, illegal dismissals of employees involved in unions, including the dismissal of a pregnant woman, as well as consistent harassment and verbal abuse targeted at employees. American Apparel is still up and running, but to put it very simply, it's not giving what it used to give. I have seen a lot of talk talk about Los Angeles Apparel, which is the brand that Dov Charney founded in 2016. Apparently, it's a good brand. It's essentially American Apparel. But after everything I've said, not really sure if I want to support that brand. But if we circle back, I do want to talk about why there are tremors that indie sleaze is going to be making a comeback. Now, fashion-wise, the early 2020s was huge for early 2000s and Y2K revival. The trousers are now baggy and low-waisted. Need I say more? So, in a trend cycle sense, indie sleaze being late 2000s and early 2010s, it makes sense that that is going to be coming next. I also think that indie sleaze and skinny silhouettes coinciding with the comeback of the 90s body and heroin chic is not a coincidence either. I also read a really interesting article on minted.com, which although I was talking about the differences earlier between Barbie summer and Brat summer, I do think that, and so does minted.com, thinks that what ties them together is the nostalgia value. Another point I've seen written about quite a lot is how people are craving more authenticity because of how curated and filtered social media is. I hate saying that social media is filtered. It feels really cringe to me because yeah, duh. But a backlash from that, however small, is completely expected. I also think something that shows how much audiences are craving authenticity is how much people go wild for celebrities who they perceive as not media trained. But something I really want to discuss with you guys is how Brat Summer plays a role in this as well. Because I think, as I discussed earlier, what is really appealing about Brat Summer is not only does the album feel really authentic, and also the album, it's a great album. I fucking love the Brat album. But Brat Summer doesn't feel as commodified as other summers, cough cough Barbie summer. I was actually literally just on the phone to Jack and he brought up such a good point that Charlie is very rarely seen in that slime green color, but Margot Robbie last summer was just constantly seen in pink. And I think Brat Summer becoming such a cultural phenomenon and indie sleaze possibly making a comeback, I actually think the fashion is just the tip of the iceberg. I honestly don't think it's about the fashion at all. I think people are rather yearning for the lifestyle that comes with having a Brat summer. One which is carefree, fun-filled, filled with friends and partying. And I think that social media, consumerism, the cost of living crisis, social stunting from the pandemic has essentially left a lot of young people in crisis and striving and yearning for a large shift in their lives. Now, the question I would love to answer is whether indie sleaze is truly going to make a comeback. In the fashion sense, absolutely. Fashion trends are cyclical. Everything always comes back. I have spoken a lot about fast fashion and micro trends and how social media has sped up the trend cycle. I do actually think, and again, social media is an echo chamber, so it could just be me, but I do think that the trend cycle has slowed down significantly in the past year. But even then, indie sleaze was popularized around 15 years ago. I do think it's going to be a while until we see a full-fledged comeback, but we are seeing it trickle through in little ways, like with biker boots and statement tights. And I think the fact that this is becoming a conversation in the culture is absolutely a sign that the girlies are going to be whipping out their disco pants and metallic tube tops to go to the club. And trends work very similarly to a pendulum swing, right? And indie sleaze almost feels like a direct juxtaposition of the clinical clean girl, which has been so popular for the past 3 to 4 years. Anybody who uses social media knows that the social media experience is sort of having some kind of like product or routine shoved in your face. Indie sleaze in its purest, earliest form is completely absent of that. I think people are craving caring less. I think people are craving the mess. And messiness is almost becoming trendy, right? Like we're seeing a few little creep-ins here and there with, and I cannot believe these words are about to leave my mouth, but rat girl core, feral girl summer. Sorry, whenever my mum's friends are like, oh my god, what's Jordan up to? And it's like, oh, she's on the internet talking about rat girl core and feral girl summer. Now, trend cycles and pendulum swings aside here, will indie sleaze ever truly make a comeback? How am I supposed to have candid digital flash pictures taken of me in the club when nightclubs are shutting down at an alarming rate? If they keep shutting down at the rate that they are, there will be no nightclubs left in the UK by 2030, and nightlife across the world is in crisis. Between March 2020 and December 2023, 13,800 nighttime establishments, including nightclubs, bars, and restaurants, shut down. A nightclub has shut down every 3 days in the UK since 2019. The number of pubs in the UK has dropped by a quarter since 2000, and in London alone, 35% of local music venues shut down between 2007 to 2015. But it's not like nightlife as a whole is crumbling. Mainstream festivals sell out every single year. The concert industry is still thriving beyond belief. Those weird ABBA hologram things still pull in £2 million a week. But the nightlife industry can't solely rely on these big dogs. Most people can't afford to go to more than a few concerts a year. Day festival tickets run up to like 100 quid if the lineup's really good. The average that I spend on a festival ticket, just a day festival, is around 60 to 70 pounds. And my personal take is I've had some of the best nights of my life at local grassroots venues. I mean, I will say I did have one of the best nights out of my life when I went to go see Pitbull at Madison Square Garden, but that is regardless of the point, because many UK artists who sell out stadiums now got their start in grassroots venues. And if those disappear, the entire music artist ecosystem is disrupted. Why is the UK nightlife scene in crisis? It can be chalked up to many factors. Skyrocketing rents and gentrification, meaning venues are having to shut up shop. Young people who frequent these venues most often can no longer afford to live in cities. The cost of living crisis, which not only affects how much consumers spend on a night out and how often they go on nights out, but also how much it costs to run these establishments. Hundreds of businesses, not just nightlife, hundreds of businesses collapsed during the energy bill crisis, where the government offered little to no assistance. People will move into nightlife hubs in cities, into luxury developments, and then complain about the noise. In London, many councils refuse to extend business hours past 11 p.m. I do hear some people argue that the nightclubs that are shutting down, they aren't the good ones, so it doesn't matter. Firstly, that's not true, but I never thought that these words would leave my mouth. But in defense of Prism nightclub, I read this really brilliant article on Dazed titled "The Death of the Small Town Night Out" by James Gregg. Some of the venues that are being hit the hardest by the nighttime economy decline are nightclubs in towns and city centres that play pop and chart music. The cost of living crisis has essentially caused a donut effect where people choose to socialise locally rather than travelling into the city or town centre. So a lot of these local establishments are doing really well, but the establishments that are in the centre are struggling. And this article is essentially in defence of these establishments. Young people become interested in different genres of music via these establishments, like house and hip hop. James Gregg argues that if all of these nightclubs were to shut down, it does really disrupt the nightlife economy. So many DJs make their living, even if they don't necessarily enjoy it, make a lot of money and a bulk of their income from DJing at these mainstream clubs. Also, mainstream and high street clubs, they are a rite of passage for when you start clubbing when you're younger. For young people to experience nightlife and learn the ropes. The first nights out I went on as a teenager were to Prism and Bar and Beyond and like Be at One and All Bar One. And these establishments I also think are very necessary because there are a lot of bars and clubs in London that have age restrictions to over 21 only or over 23 only, which I am very much for. I do not want to be in the same nightclub as an 18-year-old. To quote James Gregg and Emma Warren for Dazed, "If you start from the position that socializing is a public good, then even the most generic clubs have an intrinsic value. Are we going to say that there's no place to dance for people who aren't into culturally powerful or who aren't into niche music? I think it's snobby to suggest that the only dance floors that matter are the ones that play cool music, whatever that is decided to be," she says. In other words, it's important to have entry-level clubs which don't require you to be an NTS subscriber or check out Resident Advisor beforehand. As much as cost and travel infrastructure, it's a question of accessibility. Now, something that I've definitely been really guilty of doing in this video is wearing the biggest pair of rose-tinted glasses when talking about indie sleaze. I think it's really important to remember the darker side of this subculture than just focusing on how freeing it must have been to not have a 10-step skincare routine. Like most subcultures of the 2000s, indie sleaze had a tendency to glorify whiteness and thinness. Dov Charney was just one of many men who allegedly abused their power and took advantage of the young people around him who he wouldn't have been able to build his image without. To quote Liz Dupnick for the Zoe Report, "I lived through the indie sleaze era. Here's what I'm buying for its revival." Much has happened since indie sleaze first debuted. #MeToo empowered women and other marginalized folks to speak out against the sexual discrimination and harassment they endured while working or attending industry events. Similarly, the staggering levels of racism seen across the industry, from runway castings to the continuous promotion of cis white male talent, has finally been called to attention and in many cases addressed. Size inclusivity, a thorn in the side of the fashion industry, has at long last joined the chat. Organizations like Model Alliance now serve as a watchdog for how underage talent is treated. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't think people are so much yearning for the fashion as people are yearning for the lifestyle, baby. Indie sleaze was the last real trend pre-social media, pre-smartphone, pre-5G. I miss when I just couldn't use my phone all the time and I had to wait until I had to use the internet at home. But can this revival truly happen when we are so deep in the social media age? For the foreseeable future, indie sleaze almost feels like a bit of an oxymoron compared to sort of curated social media feeds. I love curating my social media feed. I love curating my Instagram dumps. And also, I'm going to say the word discourse. I think something that really brought my attention to Brat Summer and indie sleaze was the discourse in response to Charli XCX's birthday pictures, which I saw swirling around on Twitter. Now, this may be my most controversial take of this entire video, but some of the responses that I saw to these pictures, I think it was about 5 or 6 pictures that I was seeing all over Twitter. I'm not going to say went viral. I hate when people say went viral and don't mean it. You know, tweets that amassed tens of thousands of likes, I thought bordered on a little bit deranged. I'm not going to post any of them on here because I don't want anyone to get dogpiled. But I think if you see a picture of some celebrities having fun at a party and you think it's time for discourse o'clock, and about how it's contrived and how it's fake, I don't know what to tell you. And I know that people are going to think I'm being a hypocrite because I'm making a video essay about Brat Summer and indie sleaze and what it means for the culture. I've been loving saying that recently, what it means for the culture. And look, maybe I am. But if you ever catch me making a video essay in response to 5 pictures of a celebrity having a party, lock me up and throw away the key. I think this sort of hypervigilance and, the discourse, I don't think is a good breeding ground for indie sleaze because, I think it kind of takes away the sparkle a little bit. But yeah, my final thoughts for this are, I think that, again, as I mentioned earlier, the fashion is the surface level of it. I think that people, post-pandemic, in the depths of social media, cost of living crisis, people are constantly stressed. I think that people are craving a big shift, a big lifestyle shift, in this consumerist hellscape that is buy this on TikTok shop. Oh my God, there's been a glitch on the TikTok shop. I think people are craving throwing their phones away and bringing a digital camera to the party and then posting all the pictures on Facebook. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This wasn't so much a video essay as more of just a bit of a think piece, just some thoughts that I've had. I want to make more videos like these where I sort of literally just bounce my thoughts off of you guys and what I've, nothing super conclusive or driven or targeted, I don't feel like I had a hot take in this video. I feel like this was just thoughts bouncing in my head. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. New and improved videos are coming extremely soon. I feel like all the content I've been posting has been really bad recently because I've just been, experiencing a lot of stress, but there are new people coming to Team jordantheresa. We are about to be seeing some new and improved video essays, and I'm so excited to get into it. I'm going to start reading again because I feel like I haven't learned a single thing in months. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you soon for another one. Bye!